The allegations of SEC and Big Ten homerism are really shining through. Why aren't you speaking out more about the fight between the Big Two and everybody else right now? I am. I want all the details, but I kind of am. I kind of feel the same way you do. You're not calling me an SEC homer on this. You're not calling me a Big Ten homer on this. So what's happening right now, it's kind of boring. But if you just look at the cloud tops instead of trying to dive deep, it's pretty fascinating. So right now, the SEC and the Big Ten have a stranglehold, financially and otherwise, on the college football landscape, right? Everybody knows that. And then over the past year or so, there have been these growing movements to do things like pooling all the media rights. And what that would do in theory is make everybody a lot more money, including the SEC and the Big Ten. But it would really serve to make the leagues downstream of the Big Two a lot more money. And it would serve to make enough money where you could fund the non-revenue generating sports, the Olympic sports, women's sports, the ones that right now are threatening to be cut. And the SEC and the Big Ten are pushing back on that, saying, oh, that's well intentioned, but it won't actually work. And they're not really giving good reasons why it wouldn't work. And here's what it reeks of. I'm keeping an open mind on this because it could very well be that the SEC and the Big Ten are right. What I'm saying is, I haven't heard reason enough to disprove the theory that pooling media rights would set us on a better course than we are right now. And they keep giving these really, really intellectually dishonest counterpoints. Now, that doesn't necessarily disprove their stance. What it could mean is they have the right point. They're providing the wrong logic behind the point. But more times than not, if someone's providing faulty logic, it's because they don't have sound logic to back up their point, because their point doesn't really have a leg to stand on. They're just hoping you don't realize it.
Hey guys, do me one favor. Check and see if you're subscribed to the channel. If you are, great. If you're not, it's that easy. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't sign you up for anything. It just helps us do the show this way forever. All right, back to the clip.
Right now, I lean towards that being the case with what the SEC and the Big Ten are saying. And so if you were to ask me, okay, Josh, well, where do you think their head's really at? I think their head is in a place where they realize they are the co-kings of this nation right now, and they don't want to give that up. That's not crazy. I don't think if the Big 12 and the ACC were in a similar position, they'd want to give their power up. So it's not even an SEC or Big 10 specific problem. It's a power issue. It's as old as time. And that's why in college football, I would love for there to be centralized authority. And then a lot of people want to make political parallels to this. Like, oh, if you believe this about college sports, that must mean you believe this about politics. No, not at all. Oh, if you believe this about the economics of college football, that must mean you're a so and so economically. No, it doesn't. All it means is for my entire life, I've looked at college football sort of like a nature preserve. I've looked at college football as having these imaginary fences around it, and I have viewed college football as different than everything outside the fence, just like a nature preserve. I have used this metaphor or analogy, I guess, many times. In Nashville, we have certain places where they are nature preserves, which literally means if you're driving along, there's a huge condo high rise, and oh, there's a big industrial complex. All of a sudden, whoa, there are all these trees and animals. Well, how can that be? Well, it's a nature preserve. That's how it can be. Well, how did that come to be? Well, it's because a civil society here living in this part of the country decided that while we do want to make progress here, here, and here, this particular place we want to maintain the sanctity of. So we want to keep this area because everyone has agreed. They love the wildlife, they love the vegetation, they like walking around the lake. So we're going to set aside this specific place and we're going to govern it with different laws than we do the rest of the city. And everyone's just kind of okay with it. Well, in a sporting sense, that's how I've always viewed college football. Anybody who has passed a high school economics course understands that if you allow pure free market principles to run rampant in college football implodes in on itself as we know it. Now, the SEC wouldn't implode, the Big Ten wouldn't implode, but you see what's happened to the Pac 12, partly due to their own mismanagement, but partly due to free market principles working their way into my nature preserve here in college football. We had a gate that swung open, and some stuff worked its way in that I would prefer not work its way in. So right now, when I look at it, and I would love to have centralized authority, and I would love to have a commissioner's office, whether it's me or someone else, that really gets final say on all this. That's not because in real life I think we should have a king of the United States. It's because I think college athletics should operate differently than the country should. Because I think it has to have special provisions to maintain the best version of itself. And in college football terms, that means I don't want to have to count on Greg Sankey in the SEC or Tony Petitti in the Big Ten to quote unquote do the right thing, because that's not their job. And for all of the demonization that happens for those guys, I don't do that because I think most people who had their jobs, if they did, would end up making the same decisions because it gets really nuanced and layered and complex and complicated. And sometimes you have what are called level 10 decisions where there really is no right and wrong. There's a bad one and then there's a worse one. That's it. That's the end. So when you have university presidents breathing down your neck, when you have investors, when you have all these nameless, faceless people to you that those guys really answer to, you kind of are in a situation. I think the fridge is going off behind me. You're kind of in a situation where given the information at your hand, you have to do something that, you as a fan would not have wanted to do. So my theory is I would just love a world where it's taken out of their hands entirely. But right now, the more and more by the day that the messaging from Smash Capital or the messaging from the Save College Sports Group goes public and it gets articulated properly, the more that happens, the worse off from a perception standpoint the SEC and the Big Ten are. And I told you that weeks ago. The big problem here has been messaging. No one has garnered a supermajority of public support on this because no one has articulated their message properly. They just keep meeting in back rooms, or they keep going to Washington and meeting with congressmen and women or lobbyists. And all the while, 98% of us are just sitting out here living our lives. And it's kind of like anything else that's politics. You listen to it, but it's over there in its own silo. You're not going to let it bother you in your day-to-day life. And that's kind of how college football's been for a little while. But I'm not holding the water for the SEC or the Big Ten on this. Frankly, a lot of the proposals on the other side of the fence appeal to me more. And I've spoken about it not from a revenue standpoint. I've spoken about it purely from a fan's standpoint. I just love the fact that if you pulled media rights, if you had a college football TV deal, I love what it would do for the consumer. I don't care about the revenue because I'm not getting the revenue, nor are you, nor will most of us ever see a dime of it. But what it could do is it could lead to a lot more attractive scheduling apparatus, and it could lead to a lot more attractive broadcast apparatus. Meaning, if you're the University of Florida, right now, every one of your games essentially is going to be carried by the ESPN family of networks. There's nothing wrong with that. It's top tier broadcast quality. But in the interest of diversity of programming, wouldn't it be a little more interesting for you to maybe occasionally play on CBS or then play on Fox or then play on NBC the way that you would if you were a Jacksonville Jaguars fan? You're going to see your team play on a number of different networks. You're going to get exposed to a number of different broadcast teams. You're going to get exposed to a number of different broadcast windows. But then, more importantly, on the whole, what that does is it takes Fox as an example and it de-incentivizes Fox from just pumping the Big Ten, or it de-incentivizes ESPN from just pumping the SEC. These are the most popular allegations that are thrown at networks right now. And the allegations have a little bit of truth to them, understandably so, because those networks have deals with conferences. They don't have portions of the overall college football deal. They have deals with conferences. So, of course, it's in their best interest. It's in their best vested financial interest to promote the conferences that they have deals with. I just hate that that's the setup we have right now. So, from a viewer standpoint, from a fan standpoint, the reason I love the idea of pooling media rights above and beyond how much more money it would make them and above and beyond what it would do for women's sports, Olympic sports, even if you wiped all that out, I just love it on the surface. Selfishly, because of what it would do for me, because then at the end of the day, every one of those networks the talent at those networks, the shows on those networks, they are motivated and incentivized to cover college football as a whole instead of covering a conference. That's how the NFL does it. And in this case, the NFL, I think, is dead on the money.